This recording is for week 4, and this is just the light and flash unit. There's a separate recording for the image processing unit, and that's posted too. And for the light and flash unit, this is the weekly lesson recording that will help you with the Class Connect write-up. There is no write-up for image processing unit. So this write-up will just cover this unit. And you can see that in this unit, in the light and flash unit, we have 4 sections talking all about light and photography. Then there's a photo assignment and unit exam. One thing to remember is that Tuesday, October 1st, you're required to submit at least one assignment. So I would suggest that you could submit either the Class Connect write-up or you could submit the photo assignment. You could even do the unit exam if you want to, whichever you want to do, but you must submit something before 12 midnight on Tuesday night. We've talked about that before, so I hope to see that happen. So let's go on down now to the light and flash unit. So here we are, and first thing we obviously want to take a look at the write-up. So in the introduction page, what does the appropriate use of light do to a photograph? So if the subject is what gives your photograph its structure, then the light is the heart and soul of a photograph. Light is what gives the photograph life. So that's the answer to that write-up question. Light is what gives life to the photograph. In photography, light is not just a way to illuminate the subject, but it is a part of the whole composition. And some of you in the work that you've done, you can think of light as shadows also. Shadows are the absence of light, but you need to have light to have shadows. And some of you have sent in some neat pictures that have some interesting shadows. And that's part of light. We're going to look at the basics of light and then natural and artificial light. So as you look at this, let's go to the write-up first. And it says, what does the camera respond to? How do we see colors when we look at something? And how do we get colors different from red, blue, and green? So here we are. Often the camera is compared to the eye. While there are lots of things that are the same, there are some things that are different. The camera responds to the 3 basic colors, red, green, and blue. That's what the camera responds to. But the eye doesn't break things down. So the camera and light and eye work differently, but this is what the camera responds to. The 3 basic colors, red, green, and blue. So that's the answer to that Class Connect write-up question. In this section, we're going to learn about how we see objects of a certain color and explain how colors other than the 3 basic colors are produced. So you can see the way colors happen. Light shines on something, and all the colors of the light spectrum shine on something. But then whatever that something is, it absorbs certain light and reflects other lights. So as this example talks about right here, when you look at a lake, all the light spectrum, the whole light spectrum shines onto the lake, but the lake reflects the blue, so then that's why we see the blue. So sunlight is not only one color, it's a range of color. It's called the spectrum. It uses all different types of colors. But the way that it works is all the colors are absorbed, and then it reflects the color that we actually see. So if you're ever looking like at leaves on a tree, then all the colors are absorbed except the green color, which is reflected and we see it. So why do you think a lake is blue? Because of all the light is absorbed except the blues that are reflected, and we see those. Now mixed colors. Mixed colors, or the way we see colors other than 3 basic colors, like browns and things like that, is because the object is reflecting a mixture of the 3 basic colors. Green, blue, and red are the 3 basics. So all the colors strike the object. Like in this instance, some of the red and some of the green are reflected off of it, and red and green can make brown, so that's why we would see brown. So that's why we see other colors, is because a mixture of colors are being reflected back. So how do we see objects and colors around us? We've seen that. How do we see blue and red? learned that. Then what are the three basic colors? Of course, red, green, and blue. And if a color is not a basic color, how do we see it? Well, because it's a mix of the basic colors. Like carrot is some red, some green, and a little bit of blue. So those are the answers to the Class Connect write-up question. So we answered all three of those. Okay, section 3. In the early days, why were portrait studios on tops of buildings? What was the best combination of light to see and why? And what do you have to remember when you use only available light in a room? So that's section 3. So natural light. So in the early days, the first portrait studios were on roofs of buildings in an open area because there were no powered lights. There's no flash. So everything was done with natural light. Remember, the first photographs started in 1839. There was no electricity. So they had to use natural light. So that's why photo studios were on top of roofs way back when. And anything that is not from the sunlight is artificial light. And I guess you consider light from the moon as being sunlight because it's reflected from the sun onto the moon and then we can see it. So anything that's not light from the sun is artificial light. We'll talk about artificial light, but now we're going to talk about natural light in this section. So explain what natural light is, explain what front, side, and back light is, and explain what available light is. Let's look at this. So natural light has two characteristics. It has direction and quality, meaning the direction that it comes from and the quality of it. So front lighting means that the light is coming from the front of your subject. Side lighting is when the light is coming from the side of your subject, pointing to the side of your subject, and backlighting is when the light is pointing at the back of your subject. And you can see the way those different types of light are useful. The best kind of light to use is front and light siding, because that shows detail and reveals depth of your subject. So that one write-up question is, what's the best combination? Front and light siding combined is the best combination. And we'll look at a couple of examples here. So let's look at backlit. Now look at this and you can see that the light is coming from the back, so this is backlighting. Front lighting, where we're standing here, the light is shining on the front of these objects, so that's front lighting. And then finally side lighting. You can see side lighting, so the shadows aren't going towards you or away from you, the shadows are running parallel to the object. So that's backlighting, front lighting, and side lighting. And those are important because the work you do for the assignment in this week, or in this light and flash unit, you have to do some of those pictures, front, back, and side lighting. The quality of natural light. Second characteristic of light is quality. This is judged by looking at the shadows that are cast, not by looking at the sky. So we need to look at the shadows. So bright light gives you sharp, crisp shadows. Even when you can have clouds up in the sky, you can still get bright sunlight and sharp, crisp shadows. So you could tell, if you look at shadows, you could tell, what kind of, how much sun is coming in. So these are sharp, crisp shadows, aren't they? Moderately overcast, you get kind of grayish shadows instead of dark black shadows. And heavy overcast, maybe no shadows at all, or non-directional shadow. Available light. Special kind of natural light is called available light. The natural light that has gotten into a room or other closed area through a window, door, or some opening, that is available light. That's light in a room with no lamps turned on. So if I'm in my living room, I have no lights on, the light in that room, that's what's called the available light. And when you have available light, that sets up a light field for you. And one thing to remember when using available light, remember that the camera will use a slower shutter speed and bigger aperture. So that means you have to be very careful to not move the picture or you'll get blurry pictures. So when using available light, remember that the shutter speed will slow down and the aperture, the opening, will be bigger. So you cannot move the cameras. That's why a lot of times shooting indoors, you want to use a tripod so then you can avoid blurry images. Helping natural light. So you can help natural light to a certain degree. If you're going to take a photo of somebody outside in the bright sunlight, you don't want them facing into the sun, so they'll be squinting. It's not pleasant for them, and the photograph generally looks pretty poor. So turn them away from the sun so that they would end up being backlit by the sun. Just make sure your camera doesn't shoot right into the sun, right? You can use, we've talked about before, positive exposure compensation if your camera allows that, or negative exposure compensation. So you can do those types of things that can really help your picture. And there's a little trick right here that professional photographers use. They turn the flash on. And we turn the flash on, then that can often lighten the shadows. So if you have flash capability, you might try to mess with that a little bit. Lastly, here's a self-check list. You've seen these before, so do a drag and drop and see what you know about this unit. Let's go to the write-up and see what we answered this question. In the early days, we answered that one. What is best combination of light? We answered that one. What do you have to remember when you only use only available light in the room? We talked about that. So we answered those. That's good. 8, 9, and 10. Explain what the white balance feature of a camera does. Why is flash not useful when shooting long away from a subject? What is the reason red eye happens? I bet you're all wondering why red eye happens, aren't you? The artificial light. So this is fake light, not light provided by the sun. So natural light only comes from the sun or something reflected from the sun, like the moon. And now artificial light, we have incandescent light like the light bulbs in your house, or fluorescent lights like you might see in a school or a store or a business or something like that. And those are the two main types of light. And artificial light has some characteristics of sun, but artificial light is in its own category because it does different things to photographs. In this section, we're going to look at artificial light and some sources of it, define characteristics of the common sources of artificial light, define what flash is and how it's used, and look how to avoid or correct some common issues with flash. So taking a look at this, you can see that in this picture, this one was shot in this area that had incandescent light bulbs. So what incandescent does is it can give a reddish brown feeling to the picture. So then you would correct that with your software, and you actually would use what's called white balance. And white balance can automatically correct the reddish orange color cast. So that's what they did here. So they had this picture and they did white balance and it corrected it. So white balance can correct the reddish orange color cast that you'll get with some pictures. A light fall off is when you're farther away and the light source won't have any effect on the picture you're taking. So if you're photographing someone who is 10 feet from an incandescent bulb, the light bulb in your house, the amount of light hitting the subject will be a quarter of that if the subject were 5 feet away. So the farther away, then the less light is going to hit them, and then the aperture is going to be twice as big and the shutter speed twice as slow. So you really have to be careful when you're taking pictures using incandescent light and your subject being far away from the light. Artificial light, fluorescence. Now what fluorescents do, like light bulbs in offices, schools, buildings, stores, things like that, is that they don't get extremely hot, but they give a different light. They give kind of a green color. So if you look at this picture up here, you can see sort of the green hues to it, but look down below and there's the green taken out. And the auto white balance can help with that also. Now fluorescent lights are also usually mounted in the ceiling, so they don't give off a lot of shadows because they're mounted in the ceilings and the light is spread out across the ceiling. So you don't get a lot of shadows with fluorescent. Self-check activity, so do that drag and drop, see what you know. Understanding flash. So hopefully all of your digital cameras have flash, especially even those of you that are using your phone cameras, which have flash. Now flash is measured by guide numbers. The lowest flash guide numbers are usually around 25. They can go all the way up to 200. Most digital cameras are flashes around 50. And the average camera flash, the subject can be about 12 feet away, but no farther. And that's why it says right here, that's why it's pointless to use flash if you're at a baseball stadium, like 53rd row. And it's funny, people have their flash on. You see games on TV, football games and baseball games and stuff, and people taking flash pictures from 50 feet away in the stands at a game. So flash will not work when you're that distance away. Fixing red eye. Now what red eye is when the person's eyes flash, but this happens because the flash is reflected back into the lens from the retina of the eye. So you take the picture of the person and the flash from the camera hits the retina of the eye and then flashes back to the camera, and the camera sees that. So that's how red eye happens. And you can use, some cameras have a red eye reduction mode that's built in. Then you can see the difference in the pictures there with red eye corrected on that. Now one way you can do to avoid red eye is to have your subject avert their eyes, so don't have them look directly at the flash. And then you can avoid some red eye. Now telltale shadows, what this means are just shadows that come into a photograph just because of different light sources. And sometimes you can have very dark shadows behind the subject, and there's some ways you can deal with that. If there's a wall behind your subject, have them stand very close to it and take the picture at an angle. That way you won't have shadows on the wall. Another way to deal with the shadows is exactly opposite. Have them stand in an open area away from the wall, and there won't be any big shadows behind them on the wall. Or have the subject stand against a dark background, then you won't have the shadows. So like this one right here, look how much she stands out because there's a dark background there. And her clothing and everything just really pops out from that background. So tips for using flash, you can read through this. And flash uses a lot of battery life, so you want to carry extra battery for yourself, for your camera. For your cell phone, obviously you don't have to worry about that too much. Little quiz, multiple choice about artificial light. Go ahead and see what you can do with that. And lastly, the unit exam right here, and of course the unit exam preview is there for you. Now this week, your photo assignment, I have a recording for it as I always do. But this photo, so that's you're gonna go look at that recording to learn about how to do this photo assignment. That's all I have for you. So I look forward to your work coming in. Thank you, everyone. Bye.